My name is Scott Devours. I currently play drums with The Who on their final U.S. tour, and you're listening to Talking Blues.
How was the show last night?
In Toronto.
Yes.
Oh. It was a special one. I only have, I think, 5 or 6, no, maybe 9 under my belt.
For this tour.
Well, for this tour, right. And when you're playing with 2 artists like Raj and Pete, it organically grows as you get to know each other on stage, and it's always morphing and changing. And it's not linear. It's not like you can just be, hey, the next gig is even better. The next gig. It doesn't go like that. So when you have a magical one, or at least I felt it was magical, which has a lot to do with the Canadian crowd. They were incredible. But things just felt really easy last night. Sometimes it's a fight to find that centered, grounded, flowing playing with the people you're with. Sometimes it's natural, sometimes you just can't. You can't hit the bullseye like it's on a ship at sea and you're trying to hit the bullseye and you can't even hit the board. It's just out of your control. And some great things come from that sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes terrible gigs come from that. Train wrecks come from that. Last night for me felt, I don't want to say easy. That sounds egotistical.
But that makes sense.
It wasn't something that we could will into being. It just landed. Everything just fell into place. Accidents happened that you didn't expect. Segues worked. Tempos felt better. I don't know. That's just how my perception of it all. But whenever I have gigs like that, I usually don't like to voice that opinion prior to getting a feel for how Raj and Pete feel. Because, and that sounds like, maybe it sounds like I'm saying, unless my bosses are happy, and that's not a boss thing, it's not a hierarchy thing. What it is I can have, this is from the past, all the gigs I've ever done, I can have a gig where I get off stage and I'm like, yes, it's the best I've ever played, that felt fantastic, the audience loved it. And the singer can say, oh, that was terrible. Right. So if the singer or the songwriter feels that way, or anybody in the band, my enjoyment goes down a notch. It just does. It's a support role. The drum, I want to consider drums to be the ultimate support role. You're like the tree, and all the branches grow off of you. Right. So if anybody's branch breaks or they fall and hit the ground, I don't want to say I feel totally responsible, but I only feel fantastic if everybody walks off stage and goes, that was special, that was great, I had so much fun. Conversely, I can have the worst gig of my life, and everyone can walk off stage and be like, that was fantastic, and I feel great. It works both ways.
But right? Will there be a discussion about what happened last night? Or, is it possible that nobody talks about it?
I would say with Pete, I don't want to pigeonhole him or describe him two-dimensionally or anything like that. He's a little more reserved. I don't know if private is the right word. He's just keeps to himself. He doesn't, it's not like anybody, I would never walk up to him and be like, well, what did you think of last night? It sounds like you're asking for a compliment, which I don't ever want. I actually don't want compliments. I want criticism. Hey, this was too slow, this was too fast. Okay, I can work with that, right? So I don't really get to interact with him in a way where I just wouldn't ask that question.
Right.
So you're kind of judging by his body language, you're judging by his demeanor when he walks off stage, or occasionally he'll say something just offhand like, hey, nice one last night. And when that happens, it's the greatest moment in my life, Same with Raj. Last night particularly, I think, and the rest of the band thought Raj had the best show vocally. He just sounded amazing. And he hit notes than an 82-year-old. I think he's 82. And someone in their 80s should not be able to hit.
Right.
And a little side note, of all the legacy artists, singers that are out there, Raj is one of the only ones that I'm aware of that doesn't change the keys. And there's no shame in doing that at all.
But that's crazy that
he does not key things down. Wow. And everyone knows the Who it's up there.
Yeah.
It takes everything you have in the tank to hit those notes, and he will not key anything down. He's singing 16 of the most difficult songs ever written in rock in his 80s. It's unbelievable.
Are you told there's a special relationship between the Who and Toronto? On their first farewell tour in '82, they ended up closing it off in Toronto.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they played 2 nights in Toronto. They even actually came once or twice before on that tour.
Wow.
Knowing that they were going to finish off the whole tour here.
Right.
And they've opened up tours or closed off tours here. There's some sort of a special relationship. Are you told about that or anything like that?
No, your version of it is a special angle that I did not know. It does make sense, a comment, which don't quote me on what he said, but Pete mentioned on stage last night something special about Toronto and all the special memories they've made in Toronto. And so now that makes sense to hear the history, some of the history of it, of their connection here. Maybe that explains why it felt like such a special gig. It's one of the reasons, I'm sure.
Right.
I mean, I absolutely love Canada, Canadians. I don't want to just sound like I'm stereotyping an entire country. There's a lot of people I've never met. Almost all of them. But I've played here 20, 30 times in my life, and I have dear friends that are Canadian, and I absolutely love coming here. I've never interacted with a single Canadian that I didn't get this really positive feeling from, or it's just no pretentiousness, like really grounded, appreciative people. That's what I got from the crowd in general last night, not aimed at me, but aimed at Roger and Pete.
Right.
They were in it. They were there 100%, just appreciating what happened, not making a scene of it. Not, it wasn't cerebral for them. They were emotionally just like basking in the sun of this beautiful music. And you could feel it on stage. You could feel that love. And there are other great crowds, but something different here. And I get that every time I come here. And being behind Roger and Pete makes it... the love is extreme.
Yeah,
that they
imagine.
Get. Yeah.
I want to get to more about the Who, but I want to go back and find out how it all began. How did the drums come into your life?
How did drums?
Yeah.
When you tell the stories from all the years, the stories get crystallized in a way that sounds almost too, I don't want to say too good to be true, but too perfect, right?
Right.
But basically, if you believe my mom, who was my biggest cheerleader, thank God for her, she says as a baby she sat me down in front of those old big wooden stereos, like the console, like kind of like that piece of furniture over there. She just sat me down in front of the stereo. I don't know what she put on because I was a baby, and she swears that I went like this and started like tapping on my chest and bouncing around to the beat. And I want to believe her because it makes for a great story. But she's like, maybe we'll buy him a set of bongos. So I had a set of bongos. I grew up beating the hell out of the bongos. I broke those, and then I upgraded. Then they bought me a Mickey Mouse drum set. Paper heads, played that, broke those. Then I got a Snoopy drum set in like second grade or something. Played those, broke everything. Then eventually I got the Ringo drum set, which didn't even have like a kick pedal, no hi-hat, bent cymbals, but I played the crap out of that for years and years and years. And then one day, this would have been the 70s, very embarrassing. Had my little Kiss makeup on Halloween, and I got the big Kiss drum set.
That's
so
pretty cool.
embarrassing to admit that, but that happened. And from that point on, it pretty much stuck. Like, as soon as I had a real drum set, there was never anything in my mind that I wanted to do. And if you're an insecure kid, which I certainly was, and I still have my insecurities, like anybody does.
Right.
When there's one thing you can do where you don't feel insecure, then that becomes your expression, right? Insecure in school. I didn't know I was dyslexic, but pretty severely dyslexic. Had a tough time in school. What is it called? Where you have social insecurity, social anxiety,
Right.
to a high level. Social stuff always made me really uncertain. If anybody asks me a question, I know the answer, but two people are looking at me, my mind goes blank. Almost like stage fright, but person to person. But you put a pair of sticks in my hand, and every bit of that goes away. I'm not nervous. I'm not embarrassed. Even if I'm playing music I don't know, I just feel more like a person. So that made it really easy.
At what point did you realize that? At what point did that security come because of the drums?
Probably, I guess. So this would have. You had mentioned earlier, like crossroads and things in your life. This kind of happens to be one of them. I have to be grateful to my first music teacher. Shout out to Ms. Menchie. In 4th grade, I want to say, she said, "Does anybody in the class play a musical instrument?" This is just your music class for the day, right?
Right.
And I'm, of course, this nerdy kid, like, ooh. And she's like, "I know, somebody in here must play a musical instrument. Who plays a musical instrument?" And I kind of went, "I do." So she eventually pulls me aside. She's like, you play drums? You're going to play drums in front of the class. I'm like, and I didn't even think, I was like, okay. So that would be your example. Like, that would be a nightmare. Get up in front of the class for me. Get up in front of the class and talk. Absolute nightmare. Would have freaked out to be forced to do that. But she said, you're going to play drums. I was like, okay. And that was probably the first time, in the funny part of that story, which I might have told before, I knew this like 9-minute long jazz fusion thing that I worked on for days and days and days. I played it for the class for 9 minutes, and the whole class just sat there like bored out of their minds. And I finish, I'm all sweaty and like, yes. And she's so nice. She pulls me over. She's like, that was good. Do you know anything shorter? She had records, and this is the time of the Bee Gees, okay? Right. And I just remember my mom. The Bee Gees were huge, it's disco, right? Yeah. And my mom and all the neighborhood moms were fans of the Bee Gees. And when I played the Bee Gees at home, the neighborhood moms went, yay, and they loved it. So Ms. Menchie had records, and she was like, do you know anything in here? And I saw the Bee Gees. I was like, well, I know that. And she's like, play to that. And so she put on a Bee Gees song, and I happen to know it because it's pretty straightforward as far as drums go. Right. And I played 2 seconds of the Bee Gees, and all the 4th grade girls stood up and went, yay! And instantly, just without a doubt in my mind, I'm like, that's what I want to do for a living. Because of that moment, because she chose something that the people, which were the girls, right, the 4th grade girls who would never look at me twice, I played a song that they knew, and instantly you have this like sense of accomplishment, which is nothing, but this illusion of like, hey, I'm good at something. Yeah, right?
Well, it is something, because look where you are now.
Well, if you follow it to today, it looks pivotal and poignant, right? But it isn't at the time. It's just this little light bulb goes off in your head like, oh, that felt good. Oh, that you felt confident. You felt like a part of you was being accepted, whereas a minute before that you didn't feel accepted in any way. You're just a young kid trying to make your way, right? But what's that famous saying is like, find something you love to do and do that for the rest of your life, and you'll never work a day in your life. I can attest to that. That was that moment, that crossroads where I'm like, that's what I want to do. And you never look back.
I have to say, though, when you describe the fact of getting the Snoopy and the Mickey Mouse jump,
I hope that makes it the Snoopy kid.
But when I hear that and you busting them, breaking them while you're playing, and then, there you are, like playing in The Who, known for busting up their equipment.
I didn't connect that.
I just thought, wow, it all
That's
makes
good.
sense now.
Wow, you're making me realize there's poignant things beyond what I thought.
So you get the Kiss drum kit. Are you a good drummer at this point?
What's good for small Middletown, Maryland, with the little tiny town with the one stoplight? Good. I mean, by national standards, no. But fearless, I would say that. You start to push yourself, and I would say good in that small pond. Not great, but good.
And how do you get better? How are you learning to become a better drummer?
I have to give credit. Here's a full circle moment that happened last night. So, embarrassingly, I admitted that the dream drum set that my mom convinced my dad to buy me for my birthday was a Kiss drum set. So it was gigantic.
Right.
Because I was an 11-year-old with a Kiss makeup on. So that was the kit, right? So stupid. And I learned, and this would have been now the 80s are about to start? Late 70s? Yeah, it was late 70s. Mid-70s, something like that. And then as a young kid, all the better musicians were older, of course. So you want to play with the best musicians around you can find. And because I'm of that age and that time frame, that era, I guess, if you will, The Who, the classic songs of The Who crossed my path. One in particular would have been Going Mobile. That was probably the first Keith Moon that I heard on, at least in the States. Going Mobile is played all the time,
right?
Along with other songs. I heard that drumming and my brain exploded. Like, I could not believe, I still to this day cannot believe how genius that drum track is among hundreds of others.
Yes.
But what was the language of musicians around me at the time was Rush. That's not too different from a lot of musicians that I've met.
Yeah.
When they were already famous, from 2112 and on and stuff. But coming from a little kid playing Kiss music or whatever, all of a sudden, all these other musicians were like, oh, you don't know Rush? And boom, they throw an album in front of me. And like a million drummers, a million musicians, millions of them. Your head just explodes, absolutely explodes. I hear Neil, and what he had already done, what they continued to do and progress. That was laid in front of me, and that was completely life-changing. All of a sudden, many famous drummers have said comments like these, so I'm kind of misquoting them. You would hear a Rush song and you would learn it in your own way. You'd try and learn whatever he did. And then it was a great screen to go through, because if you could play anything of Neil's, of Rush's, with any sort of proficiency, you could play, I don't want to say anything, but you could get your head around almost anything.
Yeah.
That level of proficiency to kind of interpret his creations and that music was challenging enough that you could then turn back to any other music in rock and you could now get your head around it, right? I never could have got my head around Keith at 11 years old. Not a chance in hell. And I'm not saying I could play any of Neil's stuff with any sort of proficiency, but that was the language of the musicians around me. Like, check this guy out, check this band out. And so I was one of those nerds sitting at home listening to every single album they had, trying to learn how the hell is he doing what he's doing. And as you get up each one of those steps, I would say graduate each one of those steps, you get a song under your belt. And then all of a sudden, you'd play in an original band, and you'd have all these tools in your tool belt. And the only reason I said that to you is because at last night's show, Alex Lifeson was there. And I got to thank him. It's a very, very emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly emotional moment for me. Yeah. He was lovely. The Tom Cochran is who they played. It was also absolutely incredible. The whole band was incredible. I was already blown away by the band. And then Alex stands up there and, very selflessly just plays some rhythm guitar and a few little leads. And he was so nice.
Yeah, he's a very
He was
nice
incredible. I know all those guys are nice. I actually met them as a kid, chasing them around to tour buses and stuff. But as a goofy little fan that probably was more annoying. But I got to thank him, as I'm sure thousands and thousands of musicians wanted to thank those guys for inspiring them, and giving them hope. And so that last night was a full circle moment for me.
Wow.
Probably didn't do much for Alex, but it did an enormous amount for me to be able to thank one of the people that gave me confidence. They didn't mean to, but they did.
Yeah.
In all their experimentation and the boundaries that they pushed. And so they gave me, I don't know how to even put it into words, so I won't belabor the point, but going down that rabbit hole of some of the things they did. Then later in life, with all those tools that I got from doing that, then when I played with Roger, I certainly wasn't copying Neil. No one can. I certainly can't copy Keith Moon. Who the hell could? No one sounds like Keith Moon. But that gave me enough in my toolbox to kind of throw at the wall and turn into, I want to say maybe my own style, that put me where I am right now. And now I was sharing a stage with Alex.
Yeah.
Sharing, quote unquote. I mean, I couldn't have written that moment more perfectly, or I certainly couldn't have planned it. Yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. I mean, it's funny because I wanted to do a tribute to a great guitarist named Dominic Triano.
Okay.
Who was a legend in Toronto.
Mm.
And I asked somebody who had interviewed if he would talk about Dominic, and he said, yeah, and I'll bring somebody with me. And he brought Alex Lifeson.
Wow.
And so little Alex saw Dominic when he was 12 years old, and wow. Dominic took the time, because Dominic was like this, and to talk to him and encourage him, and he said, I'll never forget that. And so he knows the value of that to probably the little kid you were going up to him, and I think he appreciated it all, and he was kind enough to talk to me about Dominic and what it meant to him. So he's a class guy.
Wow. There is one thing, it may not translate to this interview because there's a visual to it, but on the topic of what we're talking about, this is what I got to share with Alex. I can't speak for him whether it registered with him the gravity of what I was trying to share with him, because he's at a show, he's meeting a bunch of people, everyone's like, Alex, right? But I got to share this with him, and this is my most prized possession. The day that it was announced, the first time I was going to be playing with The Who, Neil FedExed that to me.
Oh my God. It says to Scott, you don't mind if I should read this?
I don't mind.
So it's a symbol, and it says, to Scott, you stole my dream gig. Enjoy it. Wow.
Right?
That.
And so, I kind of felt it was risky to, talk to Alex, someone I really just met, and talk about his friend that passed without, I don't want to belabor, I don't want to bring up bad memories. It may still, I'm sure he's still processing the loss in his own way. Probably thousands of people bring his name up to him.
Oh, for sure.
And I didn't want to be that guy. But maybe it's selfish. Maybe it was selfish. I wanted to share that with him.
Yeah, I would imagine he would have loved that.
The most consequential moment of mine, one of the most influential men in my entire life, who's one of his most dear friends and collaborator, took it upon himself to send that to me.
So did you know him at all?
Who?
Neil.
No, he was a very private guy.
Yeah. But I mean, for him to just send that to you is
there's a little bit of a background there where we both were Sabian artists, the cymbal company that he had a cymbal line with. And when I got the Who gig the first time, this was subbing for Zach. Right. So it wasn't like I was going to be with him forever, right? I figured it was just a temporary thing.
It was worth it just for that picture.
Yeah, I didn't have any clue, so I called my Sabian guy. I guess I knew in the back of my mind that, of course, he had a relationship with Neil, but I'm only thinking, oh my God, I got to play in 2 weeks. Oh my God, I need this cymbal, that song. How's this going to happen? How much is it going to, can I get it in time? And I called Chris, who's Sabian, and he's like, yeah, I'm sitting here having lunch. What do you need? I'm like, this and this. I don't know. Is this possible? He's like, yeah, no problem. Oh yeah, look for something in the FedEx tomorrow. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. Never. Who he was having lunch with was his buddy, Neil. So just it doesn't even take me having to try and struggle to put it into words. I can tell by your expression, you get it. So I don't need to spoon feed it to your listeners. But having been so inspired as a little kid, and then to have what seemed like unsolicited Neil think of me and share, like, for him to say to me, even just on the cymbal, that I'm playing his dream gig. I'm like, holy shit, I'm in his dream gig. The whole world at that time, he was their dream gig, right? When I was in, middle school, my dream gig was his gig, right? And plus to think I would ever even have a conversation through a person, and that he would ever even think to do something nice for me like that, and how much that means to me is, it's just one of the most beautiful moments. And then to see Alex last night and show him like how important and pivotal that little bit of positive energy was for his friend to show me, and then to get to thank Alex and tell him how much his friend touched my life in that moment. I'm not even just talking about all the millions of people Neil and all of them have touched. Obviously, that's the case, and I'm just one of the many, many, many millions. No different, no more special than anybody else. But Neil did not have to do that.
No.
He was a private, very private man, and everyone who knew that about him, of course, wanted to respect that. And being worshipped, he did not apparently like that feeling at all. But, when am I going to be standing next to him or Alex or Getty?
Well, you might be doing that tomorrow night.
I don't know.
Right.
And I really hope it didn't strike him like, oh God, really? You're going to bring up his name to me right now? It was from a heartfelt place.
And I would imagine, I think he would totally get it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. It was a gamble, but I'm like, I'm never going to be in this moment again.
Yeah.
And I'll never get to thank, Neil's family, who maybe they would appreciate it. I don't want to wear it publicly, and it's not a braggadocious thing at all. It's literally the most important memento, the only memento I have that is prominently on my wall, and no one will see, but I know it's there. And I never got to thank Neil personally.
Yeah, that's
so I got to thank his mate, which I hope that registered. Yeah.
Wow.
Huge.
At one point, you're living in this little town and you decide that you want to pursue music more seriously. You get up, you stop everything, get in the car, pack your drums, and go out west.
You make it sound so much better than it probably really was.
But it's an impressive thing for me to read about and hear about, because I just think you were driven. You had a dream. I don't know what that was, and I don't know if you can explain to me the motivation behind that. But obviously, you thought, I need to get out of here. If I'm going to pursue music, I need to go somewhere. And you went to San Francisco or
That's
LA.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how did that decision come to be?
When a person says it the way, you succinctly describe it back to me, it sounds, I don't want to say the word brave, but it sounds like it took guts, or it took, some sort of braveness, or I don't know. However it sounds to me, it sounds like in a complimentary way, right?
Yes.
In hindsight, read like that, it sounds like that. But when I put my brain back to that time frame, I don't see it that way at all. Desperation probably feels more of the right descriptor to me, and this isn't false humility. I'm really glad I did what I did, especially today.
Yes.
But when having a normal father who is pretty stern, that you need to buckle down and get a job and get married and have kids, and that's what probably most parents want for their kids.
Yeah.
And my dad was no different, and pretty stern about pushing that narrative. So I got out of high school and got a job. I didn't go to college because I struggled with the academic thing pretty bad.
So did that ever affect your playing?
Not going to college?
No, having dyslexia.
Oh, yeah, very much so. It still does to this day. Not only am I dyslexic with words and reading, and it's almost like words. A paragraph looks like magnetic poetry, where the words move around.
So reading a chart would be the same thing.
Oh, I can't read a note of music. I never could. So the way that transposes itself into music, I don't know if this will sound right unless the person hearing this is a musician, but a lot of times my brain wants to hear the music backwards, like specifically time signatures. If my brain accidentally hears it wrong, my brain thinks it's more interesting. It just is more interesting to me. If I hear a rhythm wrong, if I hear it start on the wrong beat, my brain goes, wow, that is incredible. And I never can hear it the right way. Once I hear it backwards, I always hear it backwards. A Who example would be a song called Amazing Journey, where it starts on the offbeat.
Right.
Anybody who's a Who fan probably knows that song.
Yeah.
It's a Tommy song. And the guitar starts on the 1, 2, 3 and every time I hear that, I hear it backwards. And when I play it, I hear it and play it backwards. It's counted wrong. I play it wrong. I'm not playing it as Pete wrote it. I'm playing it the way my brain hears it, flipped around, which is kind of like dyslexia, for at least my version of dyslexia. I hear and read things wrong. I can read them, I understand them, but I understand them the way my brain hears them or sees them or reads them. The opposite of how most people read them. So it does overlap into music. That's how it overlaps. Anytime the rhythm is more interesting wrong, my brain always hears it wrong. Wrong is maybe not the right word. Inverted. But I know I'm hearing it wrong. So I just compensate. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, I go 3, 4, 2, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. But I just hear the 3 is the 1 and the 1 is the 3. And
That's
no one knows the
crazy.
difference, right?
Has it ever gotten to the point where somebody did know the difference, like with the moans, and they, hey, that's just not right.
Well, no one's ever said anything to me. As a matter of fact, I think some of the time when I hear it wrong, I'm playing differently. It's hard to describe in words. I'm playing fills differently. Sometimes. It's not all the time.
Right,
You know,
right.
most of the songs that are in 4/4 that start on 1, I hear it just like everybody else does. You know, that's one of the genius things about Pete's writing. They're not as complicated things are.
Right.
They're simple, but they're deceptively simple. They're really intricate in some ways and incredibly simple in others. So it's not like, what would this be? Like, what's that music? I'm drawing one of those blanks. Like, progressive, like the
Right.
real progressive metal that is incredibly complex and complex time signatures. Pete's writing is not like that at all. It's not it doesn't feel cerebral to me. It doesn't feel super thought out and complex because he's trying to be complex. There are complexities to his writing, incredibly complex compositions, but they feel simple. And that's what's genius about playing his things, right? So if I'm playing something and I'm hearing it the opposite of how most people hear it, my fills are based on, or my beats or whatever, my accents are based on hearing it wrong.
I just find
And
that
so
amazing.
that would probably, I don't know if it is, it's just, I liken it to people who have, I might be going a little far with this, but people I know or people in families that I know that have limited sight. Well, what happens to their other senses? They get heightened, right? I'm not comparing my issues to someone who has a real issue, a very difficult one. But what happens if if I can't read music? So what I have to do is my other senses automatically get sharper. I can read people's body language, musical body language, better than I can read. So I have to rely on those things more, right? It's a very simple street smart thing, right? You just rely on what you know better, and those senses get sharpened because of necessity, right? A lot of musicians I know can chart out every single thing, look at a chart, and nail it perfect. Don't even have to look at anybody. They can just do it perfectly. Well, that ain't me at all. Never has been. So I have to.
I just wonder, does this create your style though? Does it? Like I listened to the live Quadrophenia recording, and I think I told you I love the drumming on that. I love the sound of the drumming, and I took notice of that when I heard it, and I thought, wow, what a great drum sound, but also the great playing, and I don't think anything that's any different. But I guess that's the point, right? Whatever you do is not necessarily different,
Right.
but it's brilliant.
Well, that's nice of you to say that. I'm certain I've never wanted to be Keith Moon. I've never wanted to be Neil. I never wanted to be Buddy Rich. John Bonham or all the greats. Like I've never had one thought in my head that I would ever be an influential, inventive musician like that. What I feel I have a little bit of a knack for, and maybe that has to do with what you just said. I want to think it has something to do with why I'm in that throne now. And I think this approach is slightly different from my predecessors. I'm not saying it's better than, not in any way, shape, or form. The people who've sat in the throne before me are genius drummers, every one of them. And all of them my heroes. Zach especially. Mooney, highest level throne, highest level talent. What I feel I have that's different from my predecessors, and And there have been discussions about this with Roger, a few discussions with Pete. Seems like everybody else came at this doing whatever makes them special, right? At least I feel that's the case. When I hear Simon Phillips play, I'm like, that is pure Simon Phillips, 100%. Doesn't sound like Mooney, doesn't sound like Zach, certainly doesn't sound like Kenny Jones. He sounds like Simon Phillips. I would say the same thing for Zach. Zach sounds like, I don't even think, people say he sounds the closest to Mooney. Maybe there's truth to that. I don't hear Mooney, I hear Zach. It sounds like Zach. And this is the highest level compliment I can give, and certainly Mooney. There's nobody in the world that sounds like him. Nobody ever will. Ever. It's pointless to even try. When I first got with Roger, obviously I studied a lot of the studio recordings. And the very first interaction I had with Roger, he said, right when we were going to lunch, this is after the very first rehearsal, he's like, Scotty, you're not listening to any of that Who stuff, are you? I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you're not listening to Mooney at all, are you, right? Don't listen to that. Don't play anything. Don't even care what he did. Don't listen to those records. And I, of course, was super perplexed, like, well, yes and no. He's like, well, don't. Just don't even listen to Mooney. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. I'm like, okay. And as time went on, every now and then he would say some sort of similar thing. He's like, are you listening to Mooney too much? I'm like, I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure I agree, right? But he's the boss. He's my new boss. Like, I don't want him to be bummed. I want him to be happy. As the years go on, I know exactly what he's saying. But then I'm like, well, I want him to be happy, but does he really not want me to give a shit about what was played? And then eventually it came to this, and this is my recollection of it. Rogers might be slightly different, but basically he had said, he's like, Scotty, are you playing like Mooney? Don't play like Mooney. I was like, okay, Rog, let's sit down. And we sat down across from each other at lunch. I'm like, let's just talk about this. All right. So, do you think I could play like Keith Moon if I wanted to? And he was like, no. I'm like, exactly. I was like, do you think Zach sounds exactly like Keith Moon? He's like, no. I'm like, exactly. I said, I'll go as far as to say, do you think Mooney sounded like Moon at the end of his career, live? He's like, not at all. I'm like, exactly. I said, do you think the best drummers in the world could come in here and play exactly like Mooney? He's like, no. I'm like, then what are you worried about? And he kind of laughed and was like, okay. It's like, so I'm telling you exactly what I'm doing. When you sing No One Knows What It's Like to Be the Sad Man or Behind Blue Eyes, do you make up new lyrics every time? He's like, no. I was like, why? He's like, because that's not what people know. I'm like, exactly. It's like, do the chords change every night? Do you guys transpose the keys and make up new parts every single night? Change what Pete wrote? He's like, no. I'm like, why? He's like, because everybody knows. I was like, exactly right. That's what everybody knows. I said, so I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what I'm doing. There's a fill or two that Keith did that cues in the next section that is so anthemic, so melodic, that the entire world knows that drum fill. There is nothing better in the entire world. No one could. I couldn't write anything better. Zach couldn't. Kenny Jones couldn't. Simon Phillips couldn't. Keith himself couldn't write something better than what's on that record. I said, you want to know if I'm copying that? You're damn right I am. Because that's the greatest thing that could ever be played at that second. I said, now, the rest of it, I'm not playing anything like Keith. Because I can't. I can't even remember what he did. Keith couldn't remember what he did when he played live. I said, so, aside from these little punctuation marks and these little things and these little parts that cue big things, yes, you're right. I am copying those. Those are behind blue eyes moments,
right?
Where there's no lyric that will ever be better than that line that Pete wrote, and you sing it the same every night. He's like, that's right. I'm like, I'm doing the same thing, and everything in between, I'm just filling in with what I do. He's like, okay, Scotty, and he never said another word after that.
All right, so in my research, there's one Who song I think that maybe changed your life. So this is going back before this, which is Bargain from the Who's next album. And until I heard about this, I liked the song. I never thought that it was the most difficult drum song possibly by the Keith Moon.
For me, it is.
Well, once I read the article about you talking about that song,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, let me hear this. And then when I realized what it sounded like and how the drum work on that song is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
And so can you tell the backstory? Because this leads to how you wound up joining Roger's band and how you wound up joining The Who ultimately.
Right.
But tell me about that significance of that song and that circumstances around that song.
It's a little foggy for me how early in my life Bargain lit my brain up. It did. It's a little clearer for me that Mobile probably did because it was on the radio more often when I was a little kid, right? But fast forward to that, from that period, this would have been, I'm in Los Angeles. I think you said you already know the story, so
I need you to tell the story.
I'll tell the
because I love
truncated
this story.
version of it. So it's a point in my career. I'd had whatever little tiny bits of success. Good gig here. That band faded away. I'm a Robot. Speaker, Oleander, and I'm a Robot. And they each had their little blips.
Right.
And I'm not denigrating those bands. They were huge blocks of learning for me to get where I am today. So I couldn't be steps, right? I couldn't be more grateful for those steps and for those bands. But it's one of the down moments where, okay, I don't have a lot going on. I don't have any gigs. Don't have any money. And I'm in Long Beach, which is LA at the time, and I'm at home doing my laundry, and I get a call from Bill Lanham. Bill Lanham was a good friend. He was a roommate. I think he was even my roommate at the time. He's a very, very talented guy. He played bass with Joe Walsh, among lots of other people.
Right.
And I knew who Frank Symes was, and his resume is super long, and Roger Daltrey is, to me, the one that sticks out on that resume. I'm like, holy crap, Roger Daltrey. So I get a call from Bill, and he's like, hey, we are playing this little club gig down the street, this little Irish bar in Long Beach. And he's like, would you like to play? And I knew that the two of them also played in a Zeppelin tribute band. That's what they played all the time. And admittedly, I don't know my Zeppelin very well. I love John Bonham, but I never sat at home and worked on Zeppelin songs. It just never was my thing. I think it's because almost every drummer I knew tried to sound like John Bonham. And I thought, well, I don't want to sound like everybody else.
Right.
So I'm not going to try and emulate Bonham. It's like being Buddy Rich. There's one Buddy Rich. There's one John Bonham. Probably same with Neil. Right? There's one Neil. There's one Keith Moon. So I never learned my Zeppelin. And when he said that Bill and Frank were going to play, I asked him, like, well, what kind of stuff? He's like, the Zeppelin and Stones. And he started with Zeppelin. I'm like, I thought I was going to embarrass myself. Because if I go, as a drummer, if you go and play Zeppelin and you don't know it, you are a laughingstock, right? And so I'm like, know your limits, man. If Robert Plant asked me to come up on stage and play a Zeppelin song with him, I'm like, no, thank you. Thank you for the offer, but nope. So when he said that, I must have come off like and now I know I came off like an idiot, because here I am at home folding my clothes, and I'm telling the bass player from Joe Walsh and the guitar player from Roger Daltrey, I was like, no, I think I'll pass. So he's like, okay, and he hung up the phone. And as I continue folding my laundry, it dawned on me that exact sentence. I'm like, I just told the bass player from Joe Walsh and the guitarist from Roger Daltrey that I don't want to play with them, and I'd rather fold my underwear. I called him right back. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Like, almost excited. He's like, okay, great. I was like, can you send me a song list so I don't, and he sent me a song list of Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones, and at the bottom was The Who. And I just went yoink, and I saw The Who. And I very consciously said to myself, if I'm going to play a song with a guy who plays with a guy from The Who, specifically Roger Daltrey, I'm playing the shit out of that song. And that's all I listened to. I didn't listen to any of the songs but that, and it was Bargain. I'm like, holy crap, Bargain. Well, I just the whole time I had like 2 or 3 hours to get ready. I just listen like crazy. Never played the song before. And so we go to the gig. It's just a little gig, not much bigger than the size of this room. There's maybe 30 people there. And it was exactly what he says, just a fun night of whatever. And they just played Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones all night. And luckily, my friend knew I didn't know my Zeppelin. So he's walking me through. He's like, all right, stop here. All right, go. So I did okay. Embarrassing. If Jimmy Page would have been in the audience, I would have been crying. But it was fine for Long Beach. And we finish. They turn on the light. They flash the light saying, all right, we never played The Who. And I was like, shit. And so we did well enough that the 30 people asked for an encore. And the club owner's like, yeah, you can play one more. So right then and there, Frank turns back and he's like, you guys want to play The Who? And my eyes lit up like a kid in the candy store. I was like, oh, God, yeah, oh, yeah, okay. Redemption, right? But certainly being from L.A., you don't want to be cocky. Especially at this point in my career, you don't want to be cocky, especially not around Pete and Raj. You don't want to be like, yeah, man, I'm ready, just in case you blow it, right? You want to be humble. So I remember Frank turning around like, all right, you want to do The Who? And I was like, all right. And I very specifically, I remember him turning around like, you sure you can do it? Which I'm like, humble? Okay, I'll give it my best. That's all I can promise you. I'll just give it my best. And we played Bargain, and I beat the living shit out of those drums. I played my ass off. Like it was the last gig of my entire life. And we get to the end, we do a big ending in the cheesiest possible way. I kick my drums over, I throw my cymbals onto the ground, I throw my floor tom down, and I dive over the drum kit. The bass player throws his bass amp on top of me. I remember a cymbal he threw. It landed right next to my face. Went, it could have easily cut my face off. And the place went crazy. And I was just like, yes. And we finished. I start picking up my drums, turn on the lights. And Frank said, I'd never seen him excited before, so this was his version of excited. With a career like his, I can see him not being excited by much, right? And so he's like, that was amazing. That was the best Keith Moon I've ever heard. I'm going to get you an audition with Roger. And so for the next 30 minutes, as I'm taking my drums apart, I'm like, I've lived in L.A. for 20 years at that point. I've heard 100 people be like, I know Tom Jones. I know Robert Plant. I know blah, 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 blah. And none of it turns out to be true. 100% of the time I've been told they know everybody, and you never hear back from them. So I guess I had this, sure, yeah, right, look on my face. Not to impugn Frank. I thought Frank was one of the most talented people I've ever met, and I was really excited to play with him. But I must have looked like, okay, yeah, right. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I'm going to get you an audition with Roger. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you don't believe me, do you? I'm like, no, I'm not saying that. He's like, you're going to get a call. I'm like, no, that's cool. He's like, seriously. He got like, we almost started arguing as he's tearing his things out. I'm serious, man. You're going to get a call. I'm like, okay, no, that's cool. Man, I just went home, started folding my underwear again, never thinking anything of it. Forgot the gig, but felt good. Like, that was fun. Yes. I played a song with a guy who plays with Roger who said it was good. That's all I need, man. Gave me gas for the next 10 years to keep going. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, he called like 9 a.m. He's like, all right, your audition's on Thursday. Here's the 18 songs to learn. I'm like, wait, what? And that is where I say, like, Bargain completely changed my life. It is a direct through to this moment right now. And being able to sit on stage with Pete on my left and Roger right in front of me and play any of these songs is so far beyond anything I ever thought would happen. And that moment playing Bargain is probably the canary in the coal mine that, told me where to go, where not to go, and to just kind of trust yourself. I'll never forget it. And I'm grateful to Frank till the day I die for calling.
For sure. It's a very complex drumming. Is it mainly the double bass? Is that? Is it the kick drum work?
I really try not to get too technical.
But is that
with trying to
the fills that I hear all
decipher
the time?
what Keith does? And I think that's the genius of Keith. You can bring up, anybody can bring up all sorts of technically great drummers. I'm talking about rock, basically.
Yeah.
And the handful of drummers that can play busy, play complex, and have it work and not take away from the song. I mean, I can count those on one hand. And this is just an opinion, but I feel it's true. And I don't want to single out those drummers and like impugn the rest of the other drummers.
For sure.
In my opinion, it's one of the greatest tight wire acts to play complex ideas, busy drumming, fast fills, double kick of any kind, and not have it attract all the attention away from the song. For me, it's nearly impossible. It is absolutely the most difficult thing in the world. And Keith Moon, in my opinion, did it on hundreds of songs. He could play simply. He could have to just boom, boom, tap anytime he wanted to. Bargain would be an excellent example of, like, if you really listen to what he's playing, it really should, in theory, be all you're paying attention to, because it's so incredible what he's doing. And I'm telling you, when I listen to that song, I don't listen to the drums at all. I really don't.
Yeah.
I listen to how genius the song is and the interplay between the musicians. Of course, Pete's genius can be, tracked on a list of hundreds of things, and this is one of them. But that ability to put so much in a song and not pull away from the song. I mean, that's kind of like the counterpoint to that is Ringo, who's at the top of my list of one of the greatest drummers of all time. And his is the opposite of that. He's the mirror image of that. Just never attracted too much attention, never pulled away from the song. You never, at least in my book, I don't listen to a Beatles song and ever go, oh my God, listen, what is that drummer doing? Ever. It all just landed right in the sweet spot without even trying to. That is the highest level compliment I could ever give to a drummer. Just be right for the song. And I could say the same thing about Keith, but it's the exact opposite.
Right.
You could say self-indulgent. You could say busy many times. Could be complex many. If you try and work out what he actually does, it's mind-boggling what he's doing. I heard the description of Roger a long time ago saying he sounded like you take a set of drums and throw them down a flight of steps. And I'm like, that's exactly what it sounds like. But if you did that on purpose on a track, like by modern standards, if I played like that on someone's track, I can't imagine a world where the songwriter, the producer, the band would be like, wait, what the hell are you doing? What do you even think you're trying to accomplish with that? The song is, now you're taking away from the song. But these four musicians, I'm going to quote, or maybe misquote, the greatest descriptor of The Who came to me, in my opinion, the greatest descriptor of The Who is Noel Gallagher. In, I forget what interview he did, he goes, The Who, Pete Townsend, lead guitar, John Entwistle, lead bass, drums, Keith Moon, lead drums, and lead singer Roger Daltrey. I'm like, that is absolutely true. They're the only band in the world that I can name that they were each driving the vehicle, but not all at the same time. And the way they seamlessly hand off who's behind the wheel, there is nothing even close. I still, to this day, I've never heard a piece of music that accomplishes that. And if I describe to you, I want to put a band together where everybody plays lead, it would be a nightmare.
For sure.
It would be a nightmare. It would sound horrible to me. And yet they walked that tight wire on almost every single song, and it works. It's mind-blowing to me that they did that.
It wasn't until I read you describing Bargain as being one of the most complicated songs that I went back to it and listened to it a number of times and realized, oh my God, he's right. Like, this is crazy drumming in the background.
Crazy.
And I've heard that song since 71 or whatever. I love that album. But I thought, my God, this is complex.
It really is.
So have you played that song since?
I played it on one of the first two Who gigs. It's not in the set currently.
Right. Because it doesn't show up very often, I don't think.
No, maybe there's a reason. Maybe I'm not playing it right. I don't know. But honestly, to have the song list that Raj and Pete have to choose from, the compositions that Pete has written, and be able to take songs like Bargain and leave them aside. I mean, that song would be a career.
Right.
You know, if I was in a band that had that as their swan song, you could build a career on that one song, and I can name 20 genius compositions of Pete's, and they're not even in consideration to be in the set. That's a whole night of someone else's material, and they're all grand slams. Like, almost every one of them are grand slams. It's crazy.
What did joining Roger's band mean to you? I mean, I also love the circumstance, or your actual audition. So you get the call, you go set up early.
Yeah.
And can you just paint that picture for me? What happened then?
The audition?
Yeah.
The one of the good things, nice things that Frank did for me, maybe he did this with other drummers as well, but I know he did it for me. He told me, he said, we're auditioning keyboardists and bassists at the same time. He's like, so if you know a good bassist that wants to audition, you can audition with him. It's like, that way you can practice together. I was like, oh, that's genius. Mm. So one of my dear, here's actually my roommate. He's now the bass player in Rival Sons. They're a great band. Mm-hmm. They tour all over the world. They're actually huge overseas, bigger than they are in the States. I just talked to him yesterday, as a matter of fact. So we had a few days to go and workshop these 18 songs and play it 100 times. And I think that, since I got the gig, it clearly had some sort of benefit, like having someone I could lean on, someone that I was familiar with, a good friend that I could look at.
Oh, did he get the gig too?
He didn't.
Oh,
and
okay.
that I think that had to have been tough for him. But if you look at his career now, it might have been the best thing that ever happened to him, because he's doing fabulously. They're just playing stadiums all over the world. They play with all the biggest bands, and he's very happy. So at the time, I'm sure it was tough for him. But anyway, we were having talks when we were practicing together, since we're not, at that point, we've never auditioned or played with a rock star of Roger's proportion or history. So we were talking like, well, we're probably going to meet him. He's like, there's no chance we're going to meet. He's not flying from England to audition guys like us. It'll be his band and his guys and his managers, and they'll tell him this guy's good or this guy's bad. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I think he's going to be there. He's like, no chance. So I go there early, and I'm setting up my drums, and I think Dave's over in the corner, my friend, working on his bass, and all of a sudden, Roger's a shorter guy than I thought, and this little guy standing in front of me, apparently a huge aura.
Right.
But not, you think of him as this gigantic rock god, and it's just this little unassuming person. It's like, hey. And there's Roger standing in front of me like, oh shit, this is, okay. And so we looked at Dave and I looked at each other like, oh, I guess he is here. Hi, Raj. And I throw my drums together. We played Bargain, I think was the first one. So I kind of had a roadmap, like, all right, I know how to give this everything I got. for me, two magical things happened that I know played into it going well. I can't say that's the reason I got the gig.
Right.
They have to say that. But for me, I remembered from sharing a stage with other quote-unquote famous rock stars, you can easily get in your own head and be staring at Roger or whoever it is, right? And I convinced myself, all right, don't stare at Roger. You can interact with him, fine. But you can make famous people feel like you're tripping out by hyper-focusing on them. Like you're trying to get their approval,
right.
Or you're trying to they can almost read your facial expressions like, oh my God, I'm playing with Roger, and you're not in the moment anymore, right? So I convinced myself, all right, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play off him as much as I play off him or him or him. And as I'm playing Bargain, I realized, oh my God, I'm staring at Roger. So I looked to the right, and there's this rhythm guitarist, and he was just into it. He looked like he was really enjoying playing or playing with me. So I'm like, I'll play off that guy. And so I didn't stare at him, but everything he did, I was like, yeah, let's go. I was having a great fucking time. And we finished that song, and they're like, I could feel it went well. I could look at the guitar stage right. And he's like, that was great, mate. That was great. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna focus on that guy. That was Simon Townsend.
Right. But you didn't know that.
I didn't know his Simon Townsend. If anybody would have told me the last name Townsend, I would have been like, don't look at that guy. But because I'm so stupid and I didn't do my homework, all I was doing was practicing these songs. I didn't realize that Simon plays with Roger. And I'm a huge fan of Simon's too, as much as I am Pete's. So that was a lucky accident that he just so happened to give me this great energy. And I was so unprepared with doing my homework about the people being there that I could just vibe with him. And I think that helped. Certainly helped me relax.
Right.
And then afterwards, they like, that's Pete's brother. I'm like, what? Like, are you kidding me? Oh, holy shit. And then the other thing, which might be hard for non-musicians to understand this. I'm not implying you. But if anybody who's not a musician or has never been in this situation, it might be hard to describe. But Bob O'Reilly was another one that we played classic. I know now, but I didn't know then, that they always play to Pete's original synth track.
Right.
It's always there. It's been that way from the beginning. It's there last night. But now I've done it 100 times, so now it's easier. But when I learned the song, I wasn't playing to the synth track. I don't have the synth track. I don't know what it sounds like. So as we're about to play Baba, they set it up by being very nice and they're like, okay, we're going to play the synth track. You'll get a couple attempts. No one ever gets it right the first time. If you know Baba, at the end it changes time signature, and then it gets really, really fast, and it gets really slower, and then we're super, super fast, and it stops out of nowhere. And it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 8, stop. It's not an even number. It's weird, right? You have to study it, and you have to have that track. We all look at each other when it comes up like, all right, here we go. And it's very complicated to make it sound natural because it's Pete's original synth track. It moves all over the place, and you just have to learn it. So as they're saying, you're going to play to the synth track, I didn't get to hear it. All they did was give me a little in-ear, like a little headphone. I just put in my little crappy little earbud so I could hear it. And as we're playing the end, my ear goes out. And I can't hear the synth track anymore. Now, if anybody who's a musician or anybody who's a drummer, if the thing is going to move around a lot and you can't hear it, you're screwed.
Right.
I don't care who you are. Maybe Zach could do it in his sleep because he's done it 10,000 times. Maybe Keith could. But this new guy, no way. As soon as it cut out, my expression must have been like, oh shit. I'm looking over at my buddy. I'm like, I got no synth. And they already said I wasn't going to nail it, right? So I'm like, shit, it was going so well. And we get to the end. And I'm just looking around like, I have no idea when to stop. So I went, stop. And it stopped perfect with the recording by accident. absolute accident. I didn't plan it. I didn't count it. I had no idea where the stop was. I just chose, like throwing a dart at a dartboard with a blindfold on, and it hit the bullseye. And when we hit the stop, I don't want to say everybody in the band, but Simon, I don't know about Roger, but the band went, "Holy shit, you nailed it." And then they moved on. And I was like, how the hell did that happen? It just so happened that I chose where to stop, and the synth track stopped at that moment. We've played that 20 times where I know it now, and I've still missed it. I know exactly where it is, and I've missed the end, or someone else has missed, or stopped earlier, started, whatever. It's that, it's that counterintuitive that you really have to know where you are, and you really need the cues in your ear. And I just look at that like, I don't believe in the supernatural or like the hand of God reaching down. It's not my belief system. But the fact that that dart hit the bullseye and the whole band went, "We're good," I think that might have had another reason. That might have been another reason why things just happened right? And I couldn't have willed it to happen. I honestly think had I heard it, I wouldn't have nailed it. I really do believe that, because I would have been thinking, right? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? But instead, I'm like, what the hell? Guess I'm stopping here. And everyone was like, that was right. Filling out one of the test scores and just going A, B, D, E, C, and getting 100%. That's what it was like. And then I just had to pretend like, yeah, that's what I meant to do. So, remember, we had 18 songs. Right? That's 2. Maybe 3 we had played. And we finished Baba. Roger takes his guitar off. Everyone takes their instruments off, and they go to sit down and like have a tea. And I'm sitting behind the kit, and I'm like, that was 15 minutes. There's 15 more songs, and they're done. So I thought that meant
you're done.
Yeah, that didn't go very well, because even though I felt good before that, in my mind, they would want to keep playing. So I was real hard on myself, like, oh shoot. So I am about to start taking my drums apart, and I'm not paying attention. Before I knew it, Roger's standing in front of me, and he has this acoustic on. I was like, oh, hey, Rog. And he went, started playing Johnny Cash. And I just went, I started playing with him for like 30 seconds. And then he took his guitar, put it down, and sat back down. And I was like, well, that's not a good sign, right? 2, they had a chance to play with me more. They're like, nah. And they sat down. I took my drums apart. I went home.
Nothing said.
Someone might have been like, hey, nice to meet you. It's very nice to meet you. We'll let you know. Don't call us. We'll call you, kind of vibe. And it's a cattle call. There's more drummers coming behind me.
And some named drummers,
too.
Yeah,
right? A lot. I knew some of the guys. And some of them were just some of the best drummers I've ever known. So I didn't think I had a chance in hell. I was positive of it. Like, hey, I got to play with them once. I can take that to my grave. No one can take it away from me.
But not much is happening at this time in your career.
Nothing.
It's a slow
Absolutely
time,
nothing.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just back home folding my laundry again. I think the only gigs I had, which I know in some ways they're a little embarrassing. I'm not trying to denigrate the gig, but they weren't gigs that moved me. They're like mega church gigs.
Right.
And I guess they needed drummers, and I was like, I'll play. I don't care what it is. I need to eat.
In fact, isn't that how you found out when you?
That's exactly right. It was as those weeks progressed, or that week progressed. Frank, who I knew, who was the head of the music director of Rogers, and he was at all the auditions. He would call me occasionally and go. He would say stuff like, "So you did okay. The guys liked you." But there are a lot of great drummers, and some of these other drummers are monsters. I'm like, okay, good, yeah, it's fine. You don't want to hear like everyone's great. I want to hear the news, right? None of that. He's like, all right, but yeah, they'll let you know. But yeah, there's a lot of great drummers still to come. So I'm like, all right, hey, have a great audition. Thank you for the opportunity. And then I go about my gigs, and it's a Sunday night. And I finish one of these mega church gigs, the night mass. And I'm driving home in my big old clunky diesel Mercedes with a stereo. or jamming out to whatever, probably listening to The Who at that point. And then the phone rings and it's Frank. I'm like, oh, hey, Frank. And I swear to you, the conversation went just like this. He just started talking about the tour. He's like, hey, so the tour starts here, the tour starts there. We're going to live private jet here, and then we're going to start in Seattle, and we're going to end up here. We're just going to, whatever. He just named all this crazy stuff. You know, Eddie Vedder's probably going to come and sit. Oh, wow, that's great. And he's saying all this amazing stuff. It sounded to me like all this amazing stuff he was going to do. And I'm just sitting there, okay.
Which seems kind of cruel.
Well, no, I don't think he was trying to be cruel.
Right. But if you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
If you talk to him, I'm sure he was like, well, I assume I knew why he was calling, which I didn't. I didn't have that kind of ego. He never said, you got the gig. So we're going on 15 minutes of him telling me all this crazy stuff. I'm like, oh, that's great, man. And then the phone and then he went off on another topic, and I was like, I just pulled over to the side of the road on the freeway. I was like, Frank, hold on. What the hell are you saying? And it's almost like he had to hit me over the head with a newspaper. He's like, what do you mean, what am I saying? You got the gig. I'm like, what? Like, you buried the lead, dude. You could have started with that. Sorry, I'm clipping your microphone here. And so it ends with him giving me the greatest news of my life. And I got to call my parents and made my dad cry for the first time ever.
Wow. You see, I have to bring this up because there was another point when things weren't going well after Speaker that you decided to get a job, and you were doing well at the job, and you were getting, you were getting promoted. Yeah. You were making decent money.
Yeah, more money than I had ever made.
And then come to the realization that maybe music is not for you. You call your dad and basically say, I think this is it. I think I'm done. And then within a minute, you get a phone call.
Almost to the minute, yeah.
Where they offer you the Oleander gig.
The Oleander gig. And is that, for people listening that probably don't know anything about that band, but they were at their peak of success at that moment.
Right.
Whatever that is. They had a gold record and a couple of number one hits.
And you're playing arenas.
They were playing arenas, right.
So at the moment you say, I'm giving up music.
Literally. That's the only time in my entire life. And for me, this story that you bring up, it becomes a really great, poignant lesson. So prior to that moment, all I had ever done is grabbed onto the vision of, I'm going to make it. I'm going to music, drums.
Can you explain to me what that meant to you? Like, what was making it to you? Good
question. Yeah, I'm not even sure I could have put it into words. I'm not sure I can put it into words now. One cool thing it's a little bit of a tangent. One cool thing my mom did as my greatest cheerleader, still is. As a kid, she had me write down, I think it's even a list in like crayon or something. She's like, what do you want to do with your life? And I wrote down, I can't remember most of them, but one or two of them I can remember. I was like, I want to be a drummer. Okay, what else do you want to do? I want to go around the world and play music. Okay, what else do you want to do? And I think one of them was like, I want to play with the great rock stars or something like that. Some simple 5-year-old version of whatever. I forgot how it was worded, but it's something referring to like, I want to play with some of the greatest rock stars ever. And my mom later in life pulled that out. It's so embarrassing. Half of them I couldn't even remember because they're so embarrassingly stupid. But she was like, look, and this is before I got the Roger gig. And she's like, look, number 1, crossed it off. Number 2, crossed it off. Number 3, crossed it off. You did it. You took music took you around the world. So now back to your story. So that you're subconsciously, at least I'm subconsciously holding on to one vision. In other words, a special birthday comes up, but I have a gig. Sorry, birthday.
Yeah.
Special. I have a girlfriend. We had dinner plans. Oh, sorry, I got a gig. Whatever. My dad's having his 50th the anniversary, whatever. You should come home for the I can't. I have a gig. Everything in my life was second to music. Everything. And it wasn't like I said, everything's got to be second. Never said that sentence in my life. It just was, I have one vision, and my dedication has got to be unparalleled to that one thing, and that's maybe the only way I'll ever get anywhere. It just was, it's like the way they describe like Kobe Bryant's or Tiger Woods. I'm not comparing myself to those people, but their tunnel vision of like greatness, right? Work ethic, work ethic, work ethic. So I had my version of that, which was one goal. I just want to play music. And in order to do that, everything goes by the wayside. So that was always my life. So that was my version of holding on to that one version of myself, and never, ever, ever did quitting ever even enter my mind, much come out of my lips. Now, a side note to that is my dad, and no disrespect to him, he loved me and he wanted me to be safe and secure and successful. And he's the one that get a job, get a house, get a wife, have kids, all that stuff. And so Speaker had come, had their little shot, that had fallen by the wayside. So I had to feed myself. I got a halfway decent job, and I really applied myself to that job. So whenever I had talked to my dad, he had because he just couldn't identify. The music thing was just a waste of time, and it's going to go nowhere, and he's probably right. For the most part, he was right. It never went anywhere. Well,
that's not true.
Well, but back then, in his
even
world...
Speaker was a half-decent band, was it not? It was a major label band.
Not to him,
no,
right?
No,
in his world, he doesn't get it. It's just noise, and that's fine. That's fine that he has that viewpoint. And if I was homeless and living on the street right now, he would have been absolutely right. It may not have turned into anything that I could sustain my life with. So, whenever I would talk to him and anything good musically was going on, he just didn't get it. It just didn't. He was never proud, or at least he never showed that he was proud. Never had a good thing to say. If I said I was going to get a job, he would light up. If I would talk about his sports team, it had to be something he understood.
Right.
So Speaker falls by the wayside. I get this silly job, and I get a promotion. I get another promotion. I become a supervisor or something. I get health insurance. I can all of a sudden pay my bills. I can buy a car. Everything's going great by his standards, right? He happened to call me, which didn't happen very often. And he asked, how's the music thing going? And I had the first time it ever escaped my lips. I said, you know what, Dad? I think I'm done with that. I think I'm going to follow this job, take it as far as I can take it. I'm doing this. I have health insurance. He was just so proud. He was just I'm so happy to hear you say that, son. And he never said he's proud of me. At least I don't remember it, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna make music the first priority. I'm gonna be a responsible adult and work this job and go as far as I possibly can. I'm proud of you, son. I'm so happy to hear you say that. And I was about to walk into a show to see my friend's band. I hung up the phone. My phone rings the second I hang up with my dad. First time in my whole life I said I'm quitting music. Ever. And since. I've never said that since. And the guy who produced the Speaker record was producing the Oleander, the second Oleander record, the one after their gold record. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. He's like, I need you to come to to San Francisco, was where they were recording, the record plant. He goes, the drummer's not working, and I need you. I was like, for what? He's like, Oleander, I need you right now. I'm like, but you got to come right now. It pays X or whatever. And I loved my producer friend. His name is Rich Mauser. He's still one of my dearest friends. Incredible producer. And I would never say no to him. So instantly I was like, I quit my job. And my dad, I don't think he talked to me for months. He was like, you lied to me. Yeah, I was so happy for you. Now you're going to blow it all. Like he thought I took my whole life and flushed it down the toilet. And now you look at it now, and it was almost the exact opposite.
Right? Yeah.
I got rid of the weight that was holding me down. But the lesson I took away from that was just a long-winded way of getting to this point. It's like the first time I ever took my dream that I was strangling as hard as I possibly can. This one version of me has to happen. And the very second, almost literally the second, I said, let it go. Let it go. I don't even care. Could care less. Boom. The great. And then 2 weeks later, I was playing for 20,000 people at Arco Arena. And I've been a professional from that day since.
But have you let go of that thing? Like, I don't know.
Well, I let go of strangling it. Right? Like if you, what's that, I'm going to get it wrong, but what's that famous lesson of like, if you love someone, don't hold on to them too tightly. Don't strangle them. If you let them go, if they're meant to be with you, they will stay with you. If you hold on to them too tightly, you're almost going to push them away. I'm getting the saying wrong, but that's the lesson I took from it. And so this was the musical version of that. At least that's the way I feel about it. I had never, for 1 second, let that... It wasn't conscious, it was subconscious. I just strangled that one vision of myself. It had to be, I have to do this. What's the gig? It pays 2 cents? All right, I'll be there. It's country? I don't know how to play country. I'll do it. Whatever it is. Yes. Drumming, yes. If a band was on stage and their drummer didn't show, I'll play. I don't even know the music. I don't even care. I just play. And then if my girlfriend was like, well, we got to go home. I'm like, well, then you're not going to be my girlfriend for very long. It happened all the time. And I actually have so much sympathy for the people who were women who were in relationships with me then. Because, who wants to be second?
Yeah.
You deserve to be first. You deserve that. I'm like, I couldn't give that to you. No wonder they didn't want to be with me after that. But to that example, I literally let go. I tell my dad for the first time, I'm done. And it's the first time that sentence has ever been uttered out of my lips. Screw music. I'm done with this. Absolutely done. I could care less. I quit. Click. The phone rings, and I don't want to say my dreams, but my dreams came true.
Right.
As far as I thought. Right. They've come true in Technicolor now, but I remember going to see Rush, my first arena show at Moving Pictures, I think it was, sitting in an arena exactly the shape of Arco Arena, and Neil came out and hit his kick drum, and I was with my drummer friends, and it shook the whole venue, and we both went, oh my God. And I was like, I want to be right there. Fast forward to that Arco Arena show, and I was sitting on stage, the lights went down. It was their crowd, Oleander had their Sacramento crowds. It was 20,000 people, just like Capitol Center in Maryland where I saw Rush. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's a funny story. When the lights went down, the place went, and the hair on my neck stood up, I remembered Neil. And I remembered being out there in that audience when he hit his kick drums, tested his kick drums, and the whole place shook. And I just went, oh my God. So what did I do? The lights are down. I went, doo-doo-doo-doo. And I saw the lights go, and I was like, holy shit, I did my Neil moment. Fast forward to the end of that show. We come backstage, and the sound man, who was also the tour manager, started yelling at me. He's like, don't ever freaking do that again. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you hit your kick drums. You didn't tell me you were going to do that. Now I remember when I hit them, I thought I saw firecrackers go off. I thought it was like pyro or something. Wow, that was cool. He's like, that wasn't pyro. Because I had the whole PA wide open for the pre-recorded music, and your drums were up. You blew a whole line of speakers that went pop, 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 pop. When I did my little Neil thing, I went boom, 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 and I went pop, 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 pop. I blew like $20,000 of speakers trying to be Neil.
No, this is your Neil moment.
Yeah, my little Neil. No one knew it was, but that was, I saw Neil do it. I was like, I want to do it. Pow, 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 pow. Wow, that was cool. I almost got fired that day. Sorry.
That producer who changed your life, Rich
Mauser.
he described you, if I'm not mistaken, as he's great, but when he's not thinking.
That's right.
Are you still that drummer who maybe thinks too much?
Well, there's probably a good argument to be made. I have a moment with Pete. Pete won't remember it, I'm sure, because he's done 80 million gigs. But there was the first tour, the Quadrophenia tour that I played. It was almost like clockwork, and this resembles or mirrors that comment that Rich made. And I try to never forget it. Sometimes you get in your head and you've forgotten it, but I try to embody it. So I would when I sat in with the Who when Zach got sick, that was no rehearsals, just jump on stage and play. So I never got to study Quadrophenia. I never got to work it out at home. I never got to get in shape. I just had to play, right? But then when they said I was going to do the European leg, I had, I want to say a month maybe, or 3 weeks. So I'm like, hey, I can go home and I can work on it. I can get good at this. Well, if you take Rich's comment, is that good, right? So now we're on tour in Europe. And it takes a couple of shows to work out the bugs and say, okay, maybe that gig was okay. And then so at 2 or 3 shows into it, I start to get more comfortable. And so my confidence goes up a little. I swear to you, it was almost predictable. I would play a show and we'd be halfway through the show. I'm like, all right, this is feeling good. I got this. Get to the end of the show. I'm like, that was, I don't say it, but in my mind, I'm like, nailed it. Finally, I had a show where we'd walk off stage. And almost like clockwork, Pete would go, where were you tonight, man? What the hell happened? I'm paraphrasing, of course. He's like, where were you? Where's the magic? Where's the... And I'd be like, yeah, in my head, I was like, but I played so well. In my mind, I was like, I next gig. Be like, all right, let's regroup, let's be better. I started a song wrong. I dropped a drumstick in the middle of a fill. I cued the wrong tempo. I missed a fill. I forgot to come in. It was, oh my God, that was a disaster. I feel like I'm this big. Worst gig of my entire life in front of the biggest audience of my entire life. I walk off stage and Pete was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Nice one. And in my mind, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? That was terrible. Almost every time I thought I was good, he felt it wasn't. Not every time, but almost every time. Every time I thought I was really in the zone, like, wow, that felt great. He'd be like, what was that? What? And then the times where I was like, that was a giant pile of dog crap. He'd be like, nice one, Scotty. I'm like, and it makes me think of Rich's comment. Because when we first started, my first professional recording, it sounds like you already know, was Speaker's album on Capricorn Records. And Rich was the producer, and I was new to him. And so we went up there, and I had worked really, really hard to get the stuff down. And we started recording, and I didn't know it, but it was just terrible. I'm trying so hard. I can do better than that. I'm thinking like, oh, this will be a great fill, and I'm going to pow on this, and bam, and triplets would sound great here. And so after one day, he was like, you know what we're going to do? Let's just rehearse. We'll rehearse and we'll work things out. I'm like, oh, I would love to do that. I can get him even better. And so he set up mics, and I'm so stupid. Like, I didn't even realize, well, if there are mics, obviously he's recording. I thought he was just getting ready to record. And so he just came and he's like, let's just try something new. Let's try this song at this tempo. All right, let's try it. Boom, 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 boom. He's like, all right, let's try this. And we just went through every single song, and we did the whole record, I want to say in one day. And we go back in, and he would play, at the end of the day, he'd play the song. And I was like, I missed a cue. He's like, no, it's fine. And then they started, pulling up the other tracks of the rough, right, where the band is there. And then he pulled it up to the big speakers. And I'm like, well, I'm ready to record now. He's like, no, you're fine. And all the mistakes, he left them all in. He didn't edit out a single one. And as he's pulling up the other tracks, he just turns to me and he's like, you're really good when you're not thinking. And that's all he ever said. He never said you're good. He never said you're great. Never said you're shit. Never gave me an attaboy. None of that. He's like, when you're not thinking, you're a good drummer. And that just hit me like, when I'm not thinking, boy, I have to think. He's like, no. And then I didn't believe a word that he said until we got to the mixing process. And I'm trying to think who mixed it. Oh, I think Rich mixed it. He did some of the final mixes, and he put it on the speakers, and he's like, listen to that. Now, one could argue speaker is not their cup of tea. Nobody bought the record, really. But I was so blown away at how great it sounded. And all the mistakes are there. It pushes, it pulls, it speeds, it slows down. I drop a stick, it doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. Like Keith Moon. Just like Keith Moon. I'm not comparing myself to Keith Moon, by the way. But when you hear his solo tracks, there are mistakes, there are grunts, there are pushes, there are pulls.
But how do you learn from that? How do you become a better drummer knowing you can't be thinking?
For me, it's a little bit of a battle. Because, of course, you're thinking. But maybe it's the overthinking.
Right.
If you're thinking about what's to come, then you're not in the moment. And I think, let's talk about The Who. That's the genius of The Who. It does not at all sound like Keith Moon is overthinking anything. And not for 1 second. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was thinking. But his genius was that he doesn't sound like he planned to do that. He does not sound like that was the fill that fit right. He was just in the zone. And that's what came out of him at that moment. With no pretentiousness, no a triplet would really hit the spot. Let me punch in and get a triplet. No, none of that shit. I have the solo drum tracks on some of these songs. They are all over the place.
Yeah.
And that is why it's so genius. Because it's just pure them. Their personality is in every note that's played. Roger especially in those vocals. Is it perfect pitch every time? No. Is he going for notes that are a little out of his range sometimes? Yeah. And it's absolutely stellar because the intention is there. Not because, we could correct that. Let's punch in and get the note just right. Note right? If you auto-tune The Who, it would be the worst mistake ever. Ever. If you ironed out all the personality out of Keith Moon, there's no more Keith Moon. Mm-hmm. The personality is the genius. The fallibility, the volatility of it all. That's the genius. And so to have someone tell you, this is your greatest enemy right here. Just do what you do. That's a real revelation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I fight it every day because I find myself wanting it to be great. I want to play the drum fill at the end of Won't Get Fooled Again. I want it to be fantastic. But does it have to be? Can it just be what it is? I don't know. You're constantly trying to land in whatever's natural. It is a struggle for me,
Can you share? I know I've taken up a lot of your time.
Take as much time as you want.
Can you share with me another moment that I just found really special? So one day you get a call. You're in Roger's band already, so you know some of the Who material. But you get a call with very little notice. You referred to this a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
To come and join the Who in San Diego to play Quadrophenia because Zach got injured or couldn't make the gig.
I think tendonitis or something like that. Yeah.
So you have 8 hours notice or something ridiculous here, the day before, not even, and they tell you, we need you. Can you do this gig? I don't know if you hummed and hawed about it, but I think you said yes and made your way down there, made notes while your friend drove you down there.
That's right.
I think you took, so I'm curious now that you talked about having dyslexia, how how you make notes, but
Exactly. Since I can't read.
but you make notes and you go down there. You don't even take your own kit. You're basically using Zach's kit.
That's right.
This is all last minute. You show up a couple hours later than they expected. And then before the rehearsal or before anything happens, you have a moment with Pete.
Yeah.
And Pete sits you down and says something. Can you share that with me?
I would love to. Up to this point, when he sat next to me, that was the greatest conversation of my entire life. I've been very lucky to have more amazing conversations with him, around him, near him and Roger.
And sorry, did you know him?
No.
Had you met him? This is the first time you've ever met him.
He came to one of Roger's, what I should say, their TCT, Teenage Cancer Trust, Albert Hall shows.
Right.
And he played solo, and then I think he jumped up and played Baba O'Reilly with Roger's band. So, of course, then that's the highlight of my whole life. Like, I just played with the Who. Not really the Who, but it is, to me, that's the Who. If it's the two of them, it's the freaking Who. Right. So no one I know knew it, but I had a moment like, but I didn't really get to talk to him, and I wouldn't be so bold to be like, "Hi, I'm Scott. Let's talk." Yeah, he's there for a charity, and so I had my little memory like, "Hey, I got to share the stage with him. That was awesome." So fast forward to this, and you kind of already set up the story. It was just a call that Frank gave me at like 11 or maybe 10 in the morning, and said, "Hey, can you come down to San Diego?" And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Fill in for Zach." And I knew they were on tour. I'd just seen them at Staples Center 2 nights earlier, at LA. So it was, "Can you come down now?" And I'm like, obviously you're just like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Like the day of. And the backstory there, prior to getting to San Diego, is all the years I'd played with Roger, I think he had only played The Real Me. He almost never did Love Rain, and he never played anything off of Quadrophenia. Really? You'd have to ask him why that is. Yeah. I think Tommy spoke or translated better for a solo show for him. He certainly seemed to love his contribution to Tommy. He sounded amazing on it. Maybe he needs Pete in order for Quadrophenia to work, right? That makes sense to me. So the backstory is I've never played any of these songs before. Plus, I've never been asked to dissect them. If I'm going to play anything from Who's Next, I listen to Who's Next. I listen to Zach's version of it, Keith Moon's live version of it, Kenny Jones play it, Simon Phillips play it. I listen to them all hundreds of times, 4 different shows, and then I play to each one of those, and then I mess around with them with my own personality. Well, here I am going down to play Quadrophenia, and I've never played any of these songs except The Real Me. That was it.
Right.
So talk about pressure. I get there. I should give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to Pino Palladino, who was the bass player at the time. Still already one of my heroes. That would have been the highlight of my whole career, just meeting him. And that's just the first thing before I play with the Who. I get there late because it took me forever to get down there in traffic. Plus, I had made the demand for them to give me a live recording so I could make notes. Because I didn't want to give away, like, I don't know Quadrophenia. That's a bad thing to tell Pete Townsend, So I left that little tidbit out, like, give me a live recording so I can hear what the hell you're doing. So we finally get to the San Diego arena, and I can see, as we're pulling around to the side of the arena, or to the loading dock, my phone's blowing up. It's the tour manager, Rex, wonderful, absolutely wonderful guy, but he's obviously feeling the pressure, like, where the hell are you? The doors are in an hour and a half, or 2 hours or something like that. And I hadn't even gotten through Quadrophenia. I had only gotten to Bellboy. And there's still more material to like make notes on. And my friend who drove me, shout out to Christy, who saved my life, man. He's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, just go. And outside the arena, I could see the tour manager who's calling me. I can see on my phone, and he's on the phone like, pacing, like, where the hell are you? And Pino Palladino is standing there. And I get out of the car, and I've got like my cymbals and my sticks. I realized that my belt, I threw it on so fast that I hadn't even put it through the belt hoops. So my pants are bulging at the side, my underwear showing. I'm like, okay, let's go. Giant teddy bear of a guy, Pino Palladino, puts his arm around me, and he's like, hey, mate, just have fun. Just relax. Just do what you do. It'll be great. Don't be nervous. It's going to be awesome.
How are you feeling at this moment? How are you feeling inside?
Oh, prior to him saying that, my heart is beating out of my chest. I'm freaking out. How could you not?
Yeah.
And a little to back up a hair, my best friend in the world is my fellow musician. We've been in a million projects together. We absolutely are brothers. He was with me when I got the call, when Frank called me. And we had a little bit of a back and forth. You might know this part of the story, but I'll truncate a little bit. I know that he was trying to protect me. I know that now. But how it worked, Frank called me and said, hey, can you come down? I'm like, what? And then Frank called back and like, you need to come down right now. And I hang up the phone, and Brett's there, and he's like, what was that? I'm like, Frank wants me to come down and play with the Who. He's like, well, when? I'm like, right now. He's like, when's the gig? I'm like, tonight. He's like, tonight? It's Quadrophenia. Because he had seen the show with me, and he knows I've never played it. So it goes into protection brother mode, and he's like, so what are you going to do? And instantly I'm like, what do you mean, what am I going to do? He's like, you're not going to go, are you? I'm like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to go. He's like, oh, brother, I love you and all, but do you know it? I'm like, not really. He's like, have you ever played it? I'm like, no. He's like, come on, man. Call him back and say you can do the next gig. You can do a little homework, and you can show up prepared. He's like, I was like, but he could tell I wanted to go, and he's like, look, I love you and I believe in you, and you're a great drummer, but you could blow this gig for them. You could blow your gig with Roger. You can embarrass yourself on the highest stage ever. Pete said last night, this is his masterpiece. Do you know it? And I'm like, not as well as I know. I don't. He's like, well, then you gotta tell him no. And then the phone rang. He's like, all right, I sent you the recording. It was Frank. He's like, I sent you the recording. Come down right now. I'm like, oh, okay. And then Brett's about to get in his car. He got in his car and was about to drive away. And I went up to the window. And he's like, so what are you going to do? I'm like, Brett, you don't understand, man. Not just me, but every drummer I know, as kids, this is the call we had prayed would come. That's what I wanted my whole life. Like someone to call and be like, hey, Neil couldn't show up. Getty and Alex need you to come and play Hemisphere. You know, that's what I wanted at 15 years old. He's like, yeah, but I'm like, well, all right, you're right. I'm probably going to go down. I'm not going to play it perfectly. I'm probably going to make some mistakes. I might even blow the whole gig. I said, I am less worried about that than I am how I'm going to feel spending the rest of my life wondering what the fuck would have happened. Excuse my French. It's like, I'm way more worried about that. And then he was so protective of me. He was just like, okay. He rolls up his window and then he drives away. And I'm waving at him like, wait, I need a ride. Because San Diego's 2 hours away.
Right.
He just took off, and I guess his phone was off. And so he was gone, and I'm like, I can't drive down myself and make notes. There's no public transportation. What am I going to do? I called my friend Christy. I swear to God, I cannot explain it unless maybe you're a religious person. Christy picks up the phone and says, you got the call. I was like, yes. He's like, The Who called you. I'm like, yes. He's like, when do they need you? I'm like, tonight. He's like, how are you getting there? I'm like, I need a ride. He's like, I'm on my way. Click.
How did he know?
He just knew. He answered the phone. He knew I got the call. So that's why I say shout out to Christy. He literally saved my career.
But they called you because you played with Roger. They know how good you are.
Roger did.
Yeah. Like, I mean, this wasn't just a...
You'd have to speak to them on that. I don't know. Either he's just the most generous person with me or has infinite faith in me. So now to your original question. Now we're back at we come all the way down in Christie's truck. I made sure he had a CD player. I was like, I have a CD of the show. He's like, I have a CD player. I'm like, great, come. I hop in the thing, throw the CD in the CD player, and I have a little lap desk and a bunch of sheets of paper. I'm like, ready to, all right, go, you drive. So if you know anything about CD players, this is back when there were CD players. Right. So you have a rewind, where like if I miss a part, I can hold rewind and back up a few seconds.
Yeah.
The CD was one track, 2 hours long. His rewind didn't work. Meaning, I got through, the real me, and I'm into the second song, third song, and I missed something. Oh, okay, hold on. I go to rewind, it starts the whole thing over, and I have to listen to the first 3 songs again. I'm like, dude, your rewind doesn't work. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. So I had to sit there and make notes live, and I could not stop. I just had to go as fast as I could possibly go. All right, next song. What the fuck? Oh my God.
And now, is it easy to make notes?
No, because I don't read music. It's me writing down and go boom, tap, boom, boom, tap. On the third beat, go bang. It's just gibberish to anybody else, but it's the only notes I know how to make. So now we're at the arena. I have a pile of papers. I haven't even finished Quadrophenia. I still have 3 songs to go. And then I see Pino, and I see the manager, and I get out of the car. My eyes are like frazzled. I'm on too much coffee, and my belt hoops are sticking out. And he's like, you're going to do great. Just have fun, man. And that little zen moment he gave me allowed me to take a deep breath. I'm like, okay. Now, the real version of what I walked into, and Christy, the guy who drove me, was just in the audience. He just sat there and watched sound check. So I didn't know how it went until I talked to him afterwards, right? He had his version. I only knew mine. So I get in there, and like everybody's, I can see Pete and Roger both like looking at their watches like, what the fuck, man? Like, you're late. We don't even have time to play Quadrophenia, This is going to be a disaster. So I'm sitting behind Zach's kit. Everything's gigantic. He has nothing but 24-inch crashes all the way around and double kick. I don't play double kick. He has no hi-hat. And I'm starting to like get the kit ready to play. And before I know it, Pete Townsend's sitting right next to me. And I just turn. I'm sure my eyes are huge. And I was like, he's like, just take a second and talk to me. I was like, okay. And this is my memory of the conversation. His might be slightly different. Still, even if I'm slightly off, still the greatest conversation of my whole life. In a very calm, respectful tone, he said something to the effect of, I don't know if you've seen this tour. And I was like, yes, I've seen it. He's like, well, this tour has been going well, and it's been getting good reviews, and the attendance has been good, and things are starting to gel. And, Quadrophenia is probably my most complicated composition. And then he went into, I'm going to speak as him right now. He said, Zach and I have a very special chemistry. And we've been playing together for a long time. And so, I don't envy you. What you're walking into is we're asking a lot of you. So I want you to know that it is no problem if we're asking too much of you. If you don't want to do this, we'll pay you for the show. We'll cancel the show. No skin off our back. We're grateful that you came down. But I want you to be honest with me. If we're asking too much of you, you got to tell me right now. What a beautiful way to say it. Not like, I don't even think you're good enough to be here. Like, he could have just said anything he wanted and made me go like, ah. He was so respectful, and his tone was so genuine, and he didn't make me feel bad at all. He actually made me feel great. And my memory of what I said to him was affirming most of what he said. It's like, first of all, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen 2 shows of this tour, and you and Zach are like one brain. It's incredible the way you guys play together. And he kind of nodded. I'm like, yeah, I know that. I said, to be honest, and this is where I thought I had screwed up when I said something to this effect. I said, you know, if you're expecting me to walk in off the street and play the way you and Zach play together, I gotta be honest and say I think you're gonna be disappointed. I said, but to be fair, I'm not putting myself down when I say that. I think what you guys have is so special that even the greatest drummers in the world would struggle to walk in off the street and emulate the way you guys play together. I said, so if that's your bar of how this gig needs to go, I think you might be disappointed. And he kind of, from my memory, kind of nodded. I said, if you changed the question to, can we salvage the show? I said, I spent a lot of time on the way down making really good notes. I'll do what I can to watch you, and can we save the show? That's a different question. I said, if you change it to that, I think we can get through it. I feel confident we can get through it. Will it be perfect? No. Are there going to be mistakes? Sure. I said, but if you want a backup Zach, I'm afraid that's too tall of an order. And he very nicely looked me in the eyes, and he's like, I think he tapped on the speaker or tapped me on the knee or something, and got up. He's like, okay. And my interpretation was that he was saying, okay, thank you for being honest. I know what to do.
Right.
And as soon as he got up, I thought he was going to say, all right, cancel the gig. And as soon as he got up, where I knew he couldn't see, I thought he couldn't see me, I thought I had just given away the Who.
Yeah.
And I just broke into tears. And I just cried without sobbing out loud. Just tears came down my eyes. Because I thought, okay, I just gave away the gig of my lifetime. Shit. So I turned back around and I looked at that arena from behind Zach's kit, empty arena with all the lights on, and just took a mental picture. And was like, all right, I got this far. No, very few people get to sit where I'm sitting right now. Sure, I didn't get up to bat, but I got in the batter's box. What a view. And I saw Roger and I saw Pete, and I'm like, okay, I'll just take this that's as far as I got it, as far as I made it, and that's something. And I've got little tears coming down my face. And then Pete goes, all right, let's start. And they queued up the production, and it went boop, 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 boop. And we started Quadrophenia. I'm like, what? I didn't get to move anything on the kit around. I'm playing his kit like, what the hell? And we played Real Me. We played, I forgot the order of the songs. I think we played maybe 2.5 songs. And Pete was like, all right. Open Doors. And I only know this from talking to Christy, who was in the audience. They played the first 3 songs of Quadrophenia, and he said when we started, every face on the stage was like this, including Pete and Rogers. This is his interpretation. Right. He goes, and then we get into the second song. He said one member would go like, okay, and then another member would be like, their face would lighten up a little bit, and then Roger would be like, look at Pete and go like, okay, and then apparently Pete's face lightened up a little bit, and that's when he was like, all right, open doors. So he's like, obviously they wanted to see like can we even get through 10 seconds of this? And then as they finally all recognize, like, I think this could work, he's like, okay, let's do it. And then the funniest part was, as we're playing Doors, now we're playing Quadrophenia. Front row center stage is Simon Phillips, who last played Quadrophenia with The Who. And I'm just like, really? I got to play this for the first time in front of that guy. That freaking guy. And he couldn't have been more wonderful. He came up after the show and was so nice and so complimentary, even though he could have played that in his sleep, obviously. For all I know, he was probably there because Pete called him to say, like, if this guy sucks, you're coming up, right? Which I'm fine with. Like,
so how did you feel the gig went?
It was definitely imperfect.
But what's imperfect?
Exactly.
Right. I mean, do you think the audience would have even noticed?
You'd have to ask them. They certainly were warm. It's somewhere on YouTube, and I've only watched it once because it'd get me all, like, emotional. Tiny backstory, and I'm not saying this for sympathy. My dad had just died right before that. So I was in this, like, questioning things. It takes you a while to process, especially a death like that. And then on top of it, him not believing music would ever amount to anything, nor did he ever really get to see it. Right. He never got to see it with something that he knew, right? I could play on stage with I'm a Robot. He doesn't know what I'm a Robot is. He doesn't get it. But The Who, he knows they were on Smothers Brothers, right? He watched that live, right? So he would get it. But he passed away before I got that moment. So we finish Quadrophenia. The way the Quadrophenia set works, Quadrophenia as a whole, then the encore set, which was a few of the, Who Are You, Won't Get Fooled Again, or whatever. And then he introduces the band. And of course my heart's just going like this. Like, when we got to the end of Quadrophenia, I'm like, okay, all right. I look at the set list, I'm like, I've played these before.
But not the same way.
Of course. But I just played
songs.
12 songs that I've never even put a stick to them.
Right.
To play Who Are You, I'm like, I'm not saying it's easy. It's still really freaking difficult. But I'm like, oh, I'm ready for that challenge. Like, finally something I can sink my teeth into and try to be great. The other ones, I'm like, is this how it goes? Wait, did I stop here? What? I mean, you saw on that, there's a drum solo with Entwistle on the screen. I have to jam with Entwistle. I'd never even heard it. I didn't know how long it was. I didn't know anything. So, talk about nerve-wracking. I have a little monitor where Entwistle's in front of me going, brum, brum, brum. Like, come on.
And you're looking at your notes and
looking at my notes and looking at him, looking at my notes. It should have been a train wreck. And I've never listened to it because it probably is a little bit of a... as a drummer, you can hear I don't know where things are going.
But did you get to enjoy it at all?
Oh my God, are you kidding? It was, up until then, the greatest moment of my entire life, bar none. We get to the introduction where he introduces everybody. And then he talks about the story of when Keith Moon passed out at the Cow Palace,
yeah, I think
right?
So, yeah.
And the drummer that came up from the audience was named Scott. So
really?
Yeah. Yeah. And so he tied that into and again, Scott. And I don't remember what he said. Maybe I'm remembering it, more glowingly because of hindsight, right? You want it to be as great as it was. But he gives me the greatest introduction of my entire life. It came down to save the day. God devoured. And, I just had this moment, and I can see that I'm on the Jumbotron or whatever, and the audience is being just wonderful. And I got to kind of think my dad maybe would have enjoyed that, or if you believe in the afterlife, maybe he's enjoying it, maybe he saw it, I don't know. But by 2 weeks, something like 2 weeks, I missed him being able to appreciate the accomplishment. And then so we finish, we're backstage, and this shows you how clueless I am. I finally noticed my belt hoops hadn't been. I put my belt on, and I pick up my junk, and Christy's there, and Simon Phillips is in my face being super nice. And Christy's like, wow. He's telling me his version of it. And then we're about to leave, and the tour manager's like, okay, we're going to private jet to blah, 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 blah. Tomorrow we have to leave. I'm like, okay, well, thanks for everything. He's like, all right. And he keeps telling me stuff that's supposed to happen. I'm like, okay, great. And then he's like, so where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm just going home. He's like, going home? Why are you going home? I'm like, why wouldn't I go home? And he literally said, like, because you're in the Who, dum-dum. Go get your shit. I'm like, what? I didn't even know I was playing on the tour. I was about to drive home and like have a stiff shot and go to bed. He's like, go home and get your luggage, you dum-dum. Like, he had to tell me I was in the band.
For 6 more gigs or something, right?
Yeah, it was about, I think it was 6, maybe 7. And then Zach came back.
And you stuck around.
Yeah, they just were nice. They're like, because I think they had made the assumption that they needed me for the whole tour, however much longer, a month or something. And so to be incredibly nice, they were just like, you just stay on the bus, come the whole tour, we'll give you front row center seats to every show and a guest. And, they paid me incredibly well, which they did not have to do. I would have come for free. I would have paid them. Don't tell them that. And
changed your life.
Yeah.
Yet again.
Changed my life.
So I don't want to get too much into what recently happened, but you're now on the farewell tour.
Right.
Obviously the obvious choice. Right? I mean,
obvious to some.
But you've played with a band before. Like,
sure.
And you have a relationship with Roger. You've been playing with Roger for a long time. But what was it like getting that second or this opportunity?
Well, much like the one I just told you about, I didn't know about it. I was, again, home after some...
Folding laundry? Folding laundry?
Kind of. I was like, I took the cat to the vet. My wife's upstairs working. She works from home. And we just finished a little Roger tour. And I'm so clueless to this stuff because I never expect anything great to happen. When something good happens, I'm like, oh, well, that's lucky. Oh, we're going to play 2 shows? Great, whatever. Every time we've played with Rod, certainly with my wife, we've always been like, well, if that never happens again, we're very lucky to have had this. And we think, like, maybe he'll be done. Maybe he'll never call us again. Who knows? Just be grateful.
Because you've been working with him since 2011 or something like that?
2009. 2009. The first time, right? And each time we do one, I'm like, wow, maybe that's the last one. Maybe you never know. So enjoy it.
But
right?
They never say anything like...
No, they never say anything. Not to me, at least.
Right.
Plus, you never know. I mean, he's had different drummers. It could be he's going to make a change and he wants something new. Great. I know Ben, Simon's son, played with him. I thought he was great. So I was like, okay, well, that's the end of my term. I was happy for him.
Right.
Pardon me. So now I'm home from the Daltrey, whatever that Daltrey run was in Europe, which is amazing. Or maybe it was US, whatever it was. Yeah. Now I'm home and there's a million chores to do. Cat to the vet, doing my laundry. Leslie's upstairs. And then the violinist who plays with Roger also played with her name is Katie. Amazing person. Great player. She texted me. She's like, hey, congratulations. I'm like, hey, thanks. For what? She's like, the Post. In my mind, I'm like, the Washington Post? Washington. That was the only Post I could think of. The Washington Post? She's like, no, Pete. I'm like, Pete who? She's like, Pete's Instagram post. Go read it now. The backstory here is I'm horrible with social media. I barely know Facebook, and I'm proud to even know anything about that. And my wife is like, you really need to get on Instagram. And I've looked at it twice in my life. I can't figure it out. I'm usually too busy to spend the time. So I go running up the stairs, and I pull out my phone. I open Instagram. My wife's like, what? I throw the phone to her. I was like, make Instagram work. She figures out, she's like, look. And I was in the band. He had announced that I was the drummer. I mean, I was on the tour. He was announced that I was the drummer on Instagram, and I didn't even know it. That's another one of those examples.
So you missed that whole thing.
I knew the Zach back and forth.
Okay.
But
nobody got in touch with you to see you in the band again.
Yeah, nobody called and said, hey, would you like to do this? Here's the length of the time, and you be here, be there. Is that cool? Does it work with your schedule? And they just said, he'll do it. Or I don't know how they thought about it on their end. Obviously, they knew I was going to say yes, and they were right.
Wow.
Who would say no to that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
So how has it been?
Since that announcement?
Yeah.
God. Oh, my God. It's I don't know, it's beyond words. That sounds so cheesy. What makes it more poignant is every time anything pops up, whether it's on Facebook or social media, TV, commercials, a clip from Smothers Brothers, whenever there's anything from the Who, from the Detours, from way back when they were starting,
right.
If there's just a still photo of them from back in the day, that always used to make me go, wow, look at them. Look at them. They were amazing and groundbreaking back then. Mm-hmm. When that comes up now, and this is before I was playing with them, I'd see it, I'm like, they're amazing now. Like, if that band came out now, they're still one of a kind, cutting edge. That visual of those four guys is so anthemic that I have a hard time not being like, I have to sit down when I look at it, like, look at them. Look how fearless they are. Now, that always had that effect on me. But now when that happens, and I realize that I'm playing with those two guys, it's almost too much to handle. I can't even put it into words. I'm not nervous. As long as you put sticks in my hands, I'm excited to go. I'm like, I can't wait to try, right? But if I have to think about it, if someone shows me a video you're playing with these two people, I'm like, I can't look. That's a little too much for my brain to take. Because that, remember I told you my mom made me write down.
Yeah.
I want to play with a famous rock star. I forgot how I put it. That was the only one that wasn't crossed off.
Wow.
And now I'm like, wow, Mom, you made me write these things down when I was 4 or 5 or whatever it was. And how unbelievable that any of them happened, and that the most unbelievable one happened. You could have said, I shared the stage one time with a person who knew them, and I'd be like, I can sort of cross that off. They played with them, and they sort of know them, and they're friends with them, and their cousin dated their daughter, and okay, I played with that guy. And I'd be fine with hey, I'll sort of cross that off. If you would have told me in 6th grade when I heard Going Mobile that I was going to play that fucking song. Pete Townsend. And Simon sings it, and he crushes that. And Roger swinging the mic and doing the harmonica on their final tour. Are you crazy? That's insane. For anybody. Mm-hmm. I still, even, maybe Zach's done it so much that it's not a big deal for him. I find it amazing that he got to do it.
Yeah.
Keith Moon taught him how to play drums, and he got to play on that throne for 30 years. That has nothing to do with me, and I'm blown away by that. The thing I wanted the most out of all my goals that were almost too much to expect them to come true. This gets into a pretty selfish or self-centered sound, so that's why I don't really talk about this much. I got to play with Roger, and I got to tour with Roger for years, and every tour was like a higher high than the previous one. And each one of them was another layer of icing, another layer of icing. And then I got to share the stage with Pete once. I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I got to do the Quadrophenia tour, and I'm just like, I cannot possibly expect more out of my life than that. If I die now, I should be like, hey, I'm good. I'm good career-wise. I'm good. Mm-hmm. If there's any single selfish goal, and the only person I have ever discussed this with has been my wife, and I realize it sounds selfish and maybe based in ego. My connection and my contribution to the incredible story and lineage of The Who kind of felt like a footnote. I felt like a sub. And I'm not putting that down. I was more than proud to be a sub. Mm-hmm. I would have been Zach's drum tech in a second. Are you kidding me? To be anywhere close to that level of accomplishment and that level of music history in a second. But it felt as these years after the Quadrophenia tour that I was in my mind, I felt like a footnote. Because in my mind, it's Moon, Jones, Phillips, Starkey, and somewhere in there, sub here and there and whatever. I'm not putting anybody down who subbed in those years. I'm not. Even Scott Halpern, the guy who went up on the Cow Palace and played. Yeah. In a way, he's part of music history too. For sure. I talk about him still. But I felt like maybe I was a footnote that was, I don't want to say forgotten, but not significant. And I would say to my wife, she's like, if you could change anything, what would you change? I'm like, in a perfect world, I would love to be the period at the end of the sentence of The Who, the anthemic story. I don't have to be an exclamation point. I don't need to be on covers of drum magazines. You can even get fans boo-hooing me. I don't care. I always wanted to be, since I've been involved in this band, I would just love to be the bookend. It could be one show. If that's what they do, if they say, tomorrow at Toronto, that's it. That's our last show ever, and they just decide to break up. My wife and I look at each other all the time. We're like, we're fine. I don't want them to break up, ever. Yeah. But if that's what they decide to do, and I'm lucky enough to be part of that sentence, and I was there when that monumental show was their final bow, and I'm just silently backstage with my glass of wine celebrating that I was part of that sentence, I'm literally done chasing rainbows. I have nothing left to prove, ego or career-wise. That's when she asked me, what would your dream be? That's it. And that sounds probably, there's got to be ego in there somewhere. But that was the only part of my contribution that I wished I could have done something about, where I just didn't want to be a forgotten footnote. It's okay if people forget me, but if their story ends and I'm on that throne at that time, and that's a big if, still a huge if.
But is it not, as a farewell tour, it is a farewell tour, isn't it?
Well, you'd have to ask Raj and Pete that. They are very verbal about this is the last U.S. run.
Right. Like I can picture them playing some more gigs, but
that's for them to decide. And who's to say that if they do a European tour that they would ask me to do it? I could still not be the period at the end of the sentence. But as soon as Zach's departure became evident, my wife looked at me and she was like, your dream is not over. I'm like, yeah, right. And then that Instagram post, we looked at each other. It's not playing giant places. It's not Madison Square Garden. It's not Fenway Park. It's not any of that. It's, oh my God, that part of the dream could happen. Still could happen. I hope for their case, for their lineage, their final stages of their career, I hope it goes as long as they want it to go. If that's this tour, then I hope it goes that long. If it goes another year, great. I hope it goes. Obviously, I would be honored to be a part of it. But selfishly, whenever they do take their final bow, if I'm behind them when that happens, I will never want for anything after that. And if I'm not there at that final, I'll still be very proud of being associated with them for
sure.
whatever number of shows. But I can't lie to you and saying, like, being here when they say they're taking their final bow, damn right I want to be there. To be in that sentence of Moon, I can't even say it. I don't want to jinx it by saying
Scott, thank you so much for this. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah,
and,
absolute pleasure.
Really appreciate you.
No, thank you for your time and patience and me reliving all these
It's great.
lengthy stories.
What a great story.
And if for some reason you ever bump into Alex, I hope me sharing my little story, my little symbol story with him, I hope it came off the way I wanted it to. I really hope so.
To me, thank you.